Wendell Wild. So this film marks the long-awaited comeback of filmmaker Henry Selick, who hasn't made an animated film since 2009's Coraline, and the timing of it is absolutely brilliant in terms of when they've chosen to release this film, because of course in a few days' time it's Halloween, and people often tend to rewatch The Nightmare Before Christmas around this particular time for obvious reasons. And the release of Wendell Wild around this particular time gave fans another reason to rewatch The Nightmare Before Christmas in anticipation for Selick's comeback. And I'm a huge fan of Henry Selick's work, having previously done the two films I've already mentioned. He also did James and the Giant Peach back in 1996, which consisted of both stop motion animation and live action. So as you can no doubt tell, expectations were high for this film, and I was hoping that it was going to be a great comeback film for Selick. So Henry Selick's latest work follows two scheming demon brothers who are called Wendell and Wild as they enlist the help of 13-year-old Cat Elliot to leave the underworld and summon them to the land of the living. So the story Wendell and Wild is actually based on an unpublished book by Henry Selick that he wrote with Clay McLeod Chapman, and then he went on to write the script for this film alongside Jordan Peele, who had a starring role in this film. And I think because Henry Selick has previously done works that have been more from the minds of other people, like, you know, James and the Giant Peach with Roald Dahl and Coraline based on a book, and obviously Nightmare Before Christmas more than anything from Tim Burton's vision. So I think it only seems right that he makes his comeback with something that's entirely original that he wrote. And as you'd expect, it still had the traditions of a classic Henry Selick stop-motion film, particularly the way that the story interlinks the real world with the fiction world, although you could argue that the real world is actually a fictional world within itself, because that real world still had its quirks and its very fantastical and comical kind of conventions. And like other horror animations that we've had over the years outside of Selick's work, such as Corpse Bride, Monster House and Paranorman, Wendell Wild is still something original that may scare children, but due to the unique and bizarre nature of the story and the way that it's filmed, it touches upon certain themes that may portray things that happen in the real world a little bit more accurately. Because you do have certain moments in films like this that do touch upon incidences that do happen in the world, while also exaggerating them at the same time for the purpose of the film and for it to just be an entertaining story that children can, you know, expand in using their imagination. And Wendell Wild does touch upon certain themes such as loss and family and the general purpose of life and death, so I can imagine that it would touch a few nerves on part of the audience. So the film does very nicely draw that line. Now that being said, there were times when it did feel a little bit overstuffed with ideas, because I think there are just so many layers to it that due to the runtime of the film, which is, you know, roughly 1 hour 45 minutes, that they didn't have enough time to capitalise on what they could have done. They could have maybe either developed it a bit more, or they could have enhanced the running time, or maybe even in the future left the certain things that were in the film and used them in the sequel. So there were some moments in this film that were introduced, but they weren't quite addressed enough, that played a significant role in the story. But still, it was a highly imaginative story, and I'm sure kids would enjoy that side of it. And as far as the production is concerned, one thing I've always loved about stop motion animation over the years is the attention to detail and how they managed to craft something that's very, very difficult in, you know, having to move certain pieces very, very slightly. Take a picture, move again slightly, take another picture, move again and another picture, and then they're able to still put in the details and the graft for the final finished film. And that's where I do praise stop motion animators a little bit more than I do computer animators, because then they have to physically create it and then add the details afterwards. And not to mention, the patience of making a film like this must be overwhelming at the best of times too. The way that they design these characters, again like every other Henry Selick animation that we've had so far, they're so imaginative, and in some way their physical appearance matches with their personality, such as the Wendell and Wild characters themselves. But also there were two little freaky nuns that were part of the school, and they appeared ugly, and that's where it sets the tone of the story. I also really like the animation sequences that go beyond stop motion animation, in sequences that focus on flashbacks and memories. I absolutely love the characters in this film, and I'll start off with Wendell and Wild themselves. Wendell was voiced by Keegan-Michael and Wild was voiced by Jordan Peele, and both actors are actually becoming very, very good voice actors. Of course, Keegan-Michael has been in other roles in the past, and also Jordan Peele has too. The chemistry between them as these two characters was just exceptional, it really was. And again, as I said earlier, I praise the attention to detail in the animation, but also just the vocal performance between them, and you could just tell that they were like brothers, that they really kind of fed off each other. And mythologically, people do associate demons with evil, and while they did have some evil attributes as part of their characters, they were comical and likeable, and that's what I think was key to a film like this, especially as it was made for children. I'd almost describe them as pantomime villains, but yeah, Key and Peele as Wendell and Wild were absolutely exceptional, and I absolutely loved the characters. And I also really liked the young girl, Kat Elliott, who was voiced by Lyric Ross, and her character was very nicely developed as well, because she was somebody who went through trauma when she was a bit younger than she already is, but she also entered a new phase in her life in which she kind of had a new sense of purpose and a new sense of discovery. And I think that's what was key to the Kat character, because she was looking back on things that have happened, but she wasn't moving forward, and I think that's what a key message is of that particular character. And I thought Lyric Ross's vocal performance was very good. And also the character of Raoul is someone worth mentioning as well in terms of how he was represented. And I think he marks the first time that a specific type of person like him within the LGBTQ community has been portrayed in a film that's made for children. So I did like the touch of the Raoul character as well. So overall, Wendell and Wild was an absolutely fantastic comeback for Henry Selick, and it was well worth the wait. It's a film that had soul, it had heart, it had a lot of wit, it was quite scary at times, and the overall message of the film is confronting your own demons, ironically, and how to overcome them. And it was just pure entertainment from start to finish, despite there were some parts in the narrative that were a little bit overstuffed and under-addressed. And this film is another example as to why I love stop-motion animation, and I really hope Henry Selick continues to make more in the future. What did you think of Wendell and Wild? Do you think it was a good comeback from Henry Selick, or did you find it a little bit disappointing that wasn't as good as the other ones? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you're going to enjoy this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more, and have a notification bell ticked so you're notified when I upload a new video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, everybody.